Okay, I'm here with Rusty and Heidi, and hey Rusty. One of the things in this video what we're going to go over is how you can teach your dog to move away from the door when people come to the door. So basically we're going to use the principle of classical conditioning. And basically that's going to mean we're going to assign the command word, or a command word is going to be this. Now you see the dog, if you pan down the dog, that's Heidi. So she immediately instinctively comes to the door because she's been classically conditioned. Every time there's a knock, people come through the door. So she's learned when there's a knock, you go to the door and be ready for people to come in or out. Now, the problem is she might be a bit of a door dasher in the wrong situation. So to do this, what we're going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of counter conditioning for this. I do it a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show her I have a treat. I'm going to throw one. We have a couple of throw rugs right over here in the corner. Can you see them? Mm-hmm. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw one here. When she goes, the instant she licks it up, I'm going to knock on this wall. Gotta be fast. Now you can do this in a couple of different ways. We could have also said, reservations, or a funny word that means to go there, so we can query it on command. So you and I can actually do both of them. So when you're throwing it, if you throw the treat, and if you're going to do the command word, let me just kind of explain how I do that. So let's say I'm going to call it place. So what I do is I let her see it and follow her with the camera if you could. Place. So I'm doing this independent of knocking at the door, and when you're doing this, make sure nobody's at the door or about to come through the door. Otherwise, that kind of defeats the whole thing. So what I do is, what I want you to do is 3 to 5 times a day, grab 10 treats, and she's really the one, it's not so much him, correct? Okay, so then, and he can do whatever he wants. If he gets in the way, maybe put him outside. But basically what you're gonna do is grab 10 treats, come over here, throw it, place. Throw it, place. Now you can also, and if you follow me a little bit, come over here like this, sit, place. So you can give her the command word to sit, but when we put the treat in her mouth, we say the word place. So the first stage of this is just getting her conditioned. So eventually keep on doing this until you say place and she runs over there. So again, 10 treats, 3 to 5 times a day. And I'd have maybe all the people come in when their shift, so that everybody who comes in, she knows has the authority to execute this command. So when you get to the point where you say place, and you can call it a different name, we can call it St. Louis. Whatever the word is we want to use. So every time you say St. Louis, she runs over there and sits down or just stands there, that's great. The next stage is when we're going to do what I was just showing you before. So I throw the treat, and you can see we've only been doing this a little bit. I don't know if you can see her, but and I forgot I said I would get down here. It makes it a little bit easier. It's a tight quarters here. But after a while, when we saw the first time when I knocked, she immediately ran and stood right there because that's where the door is. Well, now it's going to be way too early. Let's see. She didn't run there, but she also didn't run there, which is what she's been conditioned to do in the past. Place. All right, so basically the first stage is to throw the treats and say the command word, place, St. Louis, whatever you want to say, until you can say St. Louis and she goes there. Second stage is you have somebody here, and you can do it here or you can have somebody standing at the door, but you have to work in good unison and you have to have really good timing. So I throw the treat there first. As soon as the treat goes in her mouth, we knock. And at first I was only knocking once, lightly, then I was knocking harder, then eventually, which is what most people do. So eventually when I get to the point where we knock, she just runs over there. Now we're doing this independent of anybody coming through the door. So if you're gonna do it yourself, I would knock on this wall. The next stage would have somebody actually knocking on the door, or if we're a little bit beyond that, have somebody outside. Now in this case, I would have maybe my cell phone here and work out a code. So you've always say now, and then the person knocks. She's like, now it becomes a command word. Now means I run to the door. So what I might do instead is I say, today when we're doing this, every time I say a number in my conversation, that's when I want you to knock once. So when I was a little kid, I must have been probably about, 13, knock, knock. So that's how you do it so the dog doesn't know what your trigger is. Maybe next time you do it, every time I say a color or a city name or whatever it is. And so after a while, the dog doesn't know what it is, but just knows the knock means I run over here. Now, I do this in a different way than most people do. I set it up first. normally you saw she walked over there. So what we were doing is we were throwing the treats when she went in her mouth. The next stage, and this is important, this is where most of the practice needs to occur once you got the first couple stages done. So now I go, then the treat happens. So essentially the knock at the door becomes the command sound that when I hear that sound, if I go over here, I'll get a treat. So it's important that you make that switch. Otherwise, the dog gets a little confused and it'll kind of wear off. So, and then St. Louis if you want to assign the command word as well. So this is pretty easy. This is what dogs are trained with automatically, coincidentally, without any intention. So now that you put some intention at it, it shouldn't take that long where you just say St. Louis, she goes over there, or there's a knock at the door. Instead of charging at the door, she goes over there. You come around the corner, she starts walking there, say St. Louis, and she goes back there. Then you go and answer the door. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus in this video because answering the door itself is its own activity. Now when I have a dog that doesn't behave the way that I want, what I try to do is I try to break the activity into small individual steps. And I make it, first of all, the easiest version of it possible. Then we practice step number 1 over and over and over again till the dog is behaving the way we want consistently for that first step. Then I go to step 2. We think of answering the door as one process, but there's a whole bunch of individual steps. I'm about to break it down for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Taylor is going to walk this way, I'm going to walk that way, and she's going to stand over here because the door is here so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so when you come to the door, the first thing we do is we go up here. The dog's usually here. We've done a great job. She's already staying in the background. Well, if she's here, then she thinks I'm assisting her because she's in front of me. So the first step that I would have is that the rule I would say is when we're answering the door, no dogs are allowed to be on the carpet. So if she's here, now again, the St. Louis and stuff I talked about earlier would be the best way to do it. But when and actually, yeah, I'm not going to do what I was going to do. I'm going to explain it, but I was going to do something different. So basically, you say St. Louis, she runs over there. So now this sound, if I can get it to go, is a trigger that's associated with the door about to open. Most dogs will rush the door as soon as they hear the sound. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go without anybody here. I'm going to first practice this so this sound no longer becomes a trigger and the dogs don't rush, which they're not doing. The next step, I think it's, there we go. Well, I don't know, we'll figure it out, is jiggling the handle. And I'm doing this as noisily as I possibly can. And I pull my arm back. I jiggle again, pull my arm back, jiggle again. If this is locked, then you... So I'm trying to make it as noisy as I can and pulling my arm back and resetting. So once I get to the point where, like, I've already desensitized for this, I've desensitized for this and taught the dogs this is what I want them to do, now I open it, well, I guess it was the other way. Open a crack, and they stay put. So I close the door, reset, and I open it a crack. And I close it again. So again, we're helping them practice each individual step. Just because the door's opening doesn't mean you come over here and run out. So eventually I can open it a little bit more, and I close it, then I open it a little bit more, close it, and then I open it all the way, and I'm turning so my authority, your authority goes whatever direction your front part of your body is going, my authority is going here. To step backwards, I pause, take another step backwards, make it as noisy as possible, hey, come on in. When your guest comes in, step in front of them so they can't move behind, otherwise the dog will try to use that as an opportunity to go. And then as long as the guest is on this carpet here, the dog's not allowed to interact. So if somebody comes in like, oh, I'm scared of dogs, that's okay, they're not allowed to go on the carpet. Oh, really? Okay. And they feel more relaxed. And if they leave, then the dogs don't ever interact with them at all. If the dogs do want to interact, they have to wait until the person crosses off of this carpet. So what we're doing is we're teaching the dog, this is the behavior that's expected at the door. And you saw how quickly they adapted to it. So it'll take a little bit of practice, but the exercise that I showed you first about throwing the treats is what's going to set this up for success because I'm motivated and rewarded to go there. Normally I'm motivated to go here because I can jump up on the people. I can bark at them, I can lick them, they pet me, or whatever the case may be. Now the reward is going away from the door. So this is Heidi. I'm going to get down so we can see each other. Hello, Heidi. This is Heidi, and these are some tips and tricks you can use on how to teach a dog to move away from the door, and then how to break answering the door down in individual steps so you can teach them to behave the way you want.